Hey, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Glad to have you back. So it's not me screwing up sound.
Yeah, that was a thing.
I learned a lesson. Mostly, well, I want. In my defense, neither of us knew that lesson existed yet, and now we both do. Which is that when I'm trying to play a video back from my computer because I can only get it up to 1994 quality by downloading it to StreamYard. It's actually piping in the sound from my mic, which is a little odd. So
well, I still have no idea what happened there, but you made a valiant effort. The way that was supposed to work is David's supposed to be able to share a video file from his desktop straight into the stream, and everything shit the bed on him. So you gave it your best shot. It's always appreciated. We've uploaded that clip separately for those that missed the discussion at all, and reinserted an edit version on YouTube with a clean audio of that clip. And I cut a little bit of your uh-oh cover, your vamping. I gave you a break on having that preserved for posterity in a second copy. So
I was doing what I could. I was doing what I could.
Oh, you know what? This is one of the first times I'm coming to the show talked out. I have been talking all fucking day. So we're going to probably be much more promptly on time tonight because I can't wait to stop talking for the day. I spent like the first 2.5, 3 hours of the day today in a meeting with a community member here. And then my afternoon was back-to-back meetings because for some reason my dumb ass thought it would be a great idea to schedule myself some co-working time over at the Chamber of Commerce and then just slot in every one of my work meetings, remote meetings, headset and all, one after the other. A couple of them had a 30-minute gap, but like I spent literally the whole day talking. It was fascinating. And most people that know me are like, well, he ever gets tired of talking, really? But it happens.
Yeah, I actually don't believe it. I think you're full of shit right now.
Oh, how was your day, sir?
It was good. I got to have a fun little convo with Comcast today. I caught them trying to just randomly raise my bill $10.
Oh, that's neat.
And I called them like, oh, it was an accounting error. I'm like, bullshit, it was.
Yeah, that sounds like a really convenient excuse from one of the shittiest companies on the face of the planet.
Like, no, you were lying. You're like, he's like, oh, I'm like, I have the two bills in front of me, and like, it very explicitly doesn't say, what the extra $10 is for. It's just a random $10
shows up.
Like
That's
everything
great.
else is itemized except for that random $10 that randomly shows up. I'm like adding up the bill. I'm like, nope, you like adding it up. No, you just randomly raised the price $10.
I'm dreading looking at our AT&T bill because they were supposed to be raising some rates, and I haven't. It's been a month or two now that I haven't gone in and like looked at it to see like what went up and how and what package am I going to have to try to settle on now because they don't deserve more money.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I'll tell you. I mean, I don't know if they have it up there, but I don't know who like if you all get cable, but one of the nice things that I find because I'm not going to quite ready to cut the cord yet. For the stuff that I enjoy, but Comcast knocks $10 off your bill if you sign up for Xfinity Mobile.
There are some. Well, I mean, we're already getting packaging with AT&T because we have everything. Everything is AT&T, which is why Comcast even started doing that shit. Do you still have to argue with Comcast every time you talk to them about how much you don't want a landline phone? Do they still try to like shove that up your ass sideways?
Now it's actually I qualify for a free landline phone if I want one because
they're still basically doing it. They're just trying to give it away at this point.
Yeah,
I don't know what their incentive is to make you have a landline, but they've been trying
federal
for the
subsidy
best part of 15 years.
Federal subsidy.
I guess it's that makes sense.
Also, it's all about subscriber rates. I mean, look at the bath Netflix took a few weeks ago because their subscriber rate went down, and it's just like they're still huge. And like now all these people are coming out of the woodwork saying, streaming's irrevocably broken. We're all gonna have to go back to cable. I'm like, no,
bro. That's not what's about to happen.
The arms race amongst streaming is breaking things because arms race has as we've seen historically, arms races tend to cost a lot of money, and that's where it's at.
Yeah. So if you're just joining us for the first time, the deal is that Dave and I, for our entire relationship, have sat around, enjoyed craft beer, been opinionated about said craft beer while being opinionated about politics. But we both luckily come from the same leftist side of the fence. So we decided to just start sharing that relationship with the world, and that's what we do here every week, currently Thursday nights. And that seems to be safe, so we're sticking with it.
Yep.
If you're here, feel free to say hello. Rob's here. Good evening, Rob. Rob just informed me recently that I'm about to visit LA. We are three of us out there, him and our buddy Dave. We're going to go to WrestleMania. WrestleMania goes to Hollywood, so
You will get no reaction from me whatsoever from your childish version of, I don't even know what to call that, like Punch and Judy.
It's a violence soap opera. Give it a break. But more importantly, I get to take like all kinds of selfies with like the Hollywood sign and shit. And Olivia's here, who is jealous of your offer for the free landline. So
yeah, sign up for Xfinity Mobile, and apparently, like they'll be like, "Yeah, we'll give you a free landline."
Yeah, then you have to put up with whatever the fuck Xfinity Mobile is running on.
Well, I mean, it's not. It's Verizon. It's reskinned Verizon.
It is in your region. I don't know if if New England's going to do the same thing or not. Who knows? I don't know if it's always Verizon. I don't know.
I think it's always Verizon. I think it's all just reskinned Verizon.
Maybe it is. That concept boggles my mind. Like, if someone can essentially white label a cell phone service, then that means there's a ridiculous profit margin.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, and you know, the nice thing, but here's the nice thing about Comcast, which is it's only $12 a month as long as I can keep it on Wi-Fi as much as possible.
Right. I remember you struggling with that a couple times.
And now that I've gotten it straight, ever since they accidentally killed my modem and I had to get all that fixed. Or they didn't kill my modem, they killed my secondary router. But since they killed it, and I had to go onto using nothing but Xfinity Wi-Fi for like 48 hours while I was getting that fixed. Now, whenever I go out and about, wherever there's an Xfinity Wi-Fi signal, my phone automatically picks it up, and there we go. I'm no longer
handy.
money, right?
Listening to you describe your experience with Comcast and Xfinity, it's like when Ray brings the Ghostbusters Ecto 1 when he just bought it, and he's like, how great it is, and then he starts listing all the shit that's wrong with it. You're like, it's great, except sometimes it doesn't work, and this broke, and anyway.
Have you met a service provider? I mean,
fair enough. People may have noticed I changed my background. I'm nerd proud lately because I got grown-up furniture for all of my kids' stuff. I also decided to get my marketing stuff in frame with me, so when I have meetings, so my awards and books and my little Mad Men guys, my Mad Men Funko Pops. Now that big fucking black void there is for a couple of awards I have yet to purchase the overpriced trophies for, but they have a reserved spot. Because if you're going to have trophies and you're going to work at home, you don't get to show them off at the office, so you might as well fucking put them in the frame of the video. Anyway, yep. In my Hulk Hogan impression today, what you gonna do, brother, when these 24-inch pythons run wild on you? That's the best I got right now.
That actually
I'm tossed out.
That sounds like me.
Rob, you can put on a tank top and do your full-blown impression, and we'll put it on the show as a clip. Anyway, those that have joined us before know that we always kick off with a little segment to talk about a few things that are going on in the universe, and that's our hot take happy hour. And we decided to make ourselves accountable to the world and start listing it off. That way, if you tune in, you know, like, what the fuck are they talking about? And you can start reading the bottom of the screen.
It's not just random, like us.
Okay, that's what they're talking about. So I'll kick us off. I had this epiphany when thinking through the Liz Cheney debacle, because I am a little bit sick of hearing about Liz Cheney, and I was kind of like reluctant to talk about it because every fucking buddy except Fox is talking about it. CNN, it's like the only thing they want to talk about. Like, Liz Cheney this and Liz Cheney that. And like, oh, we all knew she was going to lose and now she lost. And okay, whatever. Like, I don't need to hear about nothing but Liz Cheney. What's going on with Russia? Anyway,
right.
So my only take on it became like, no one's talking about this. I think Liz Cheney is more honorable than several Congress members from the past 12 to 15 years. And my examples from Tennessee, my short take on it is Liz Cheney is more honorable than Bart Gordon and Lincoln Davis, etc. And the reason I say that is Brian's here, by the way. Hi, Brian. Heidi ho-hos. Liz Cheney at least stuck to her guns. Liz Cheney was faced with an unpopular thing that she should stand up for as a government leader. Now, I'm not here to, suck Liz Cheney's dick like half of the fucking left. I realize that she is who she is, that she supports the things that she supports. She is a Republican, but she was in the devil category of Republicans. And now they're like a refreshing rarity. But for me, she has shown an opposite example of elected leadership than what the Democrats who voted for healthcare and then ran away as fast as they fucking could. Those pussies have pissed me off for years. And to me, Liz Cheney has honored what she was there to do more than those fucking clowns. It offended the fuck out of me that as soon as I turned 18, my whole family said, "You're voting for Bart Gordon." Okay, I'm voting for Bart Gordon, representative from Tennessee. Automatically voted for Bart Gordon my whole fucking life. And then I vote for Barack Obama because I want the things that Barack Obama says he's going to do. And Bart Gordon votes to support the things that I voted for Obama to do. And then he pieces out. He's too much of a fucking pussy to face another cycle and lose because of his principles. And I will say that at least Liz Cheney went down on her principles, which sounds kind of dirty in a really entertaining kind of way.
I mean, don't forget Jones out of Alabama, who completely fell on his sword, right? I mean, they're examples of integrity. I think, honestly, I think I hate to be real politic about it, but I do feel like Cheney is making a power play, because the thing is, there are a lot of Republicans. There's a lot of people, and I think more moderate. What remains of the species once called moderate Republican, and
what remains, yeah,
right.
It's like finding a mastodon skeleton up here in Michigan.
I hate to be real politic about it, but I feel like she sees an entry for herself and those groups who want to be, quote, fiscally conservative and socially liberal, which those two never pan out the way that they're supposed to.
Well, because you can't really do those at the same time. They don't work that way.
It's really hard to do those at the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like because like the likes of Michael Steele, Bill Kristol, Rogers out of Florida, hell, I mean, there's some people who might even jump. I mean, if I'm thinking about it, like Romney, Murkowski,
right.
Collins, you can maybe peel off someone like, I mean, even in Wyoming, you might be able to peel off someone like Barrasso.
So you're thinking like in the scope of her great task pack that she's pivoting to, like that kind of crowd, Lincoln Project, Great Task.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, these aren't necessarily Lincoln Project guys, but the thing is, if their life becomes more difficult because they're supporting Trump, and obviously it keeps on getting more and more difficult, she has the opportunity to build, if not a quasi third party, like the Blue Dogs became inside the Democratic Party, but at least some sort of caucus that can exert influence and present her as a potential kingmaker in divided politics.
Well, and
right?
I could totally see her jumping in like the Republican primary or whatever, and being a force that takes a healthy chunk out of the electorate that fucks up the Trump train, as it were, or the DeSantis Dinghy.
Well, I mean, and
Trump
there's
has
talk,
a train, DeSantis has a dinghy. That's good alliteration.
there's talk that Cheney might be angling for a unity ticket of, hey, Biden, I know you don't like Kamala.
Kamala
Sorry.
Kamala is the comic book character.
Right. Kamala. I know you don't like Kamala.
Two entirely different words, apparently.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm bad.
People don't ever believe me when I say that the nerd world and politics world overlap more frequently than they would like to admit.
But I mean,
that word is one of them.
There's talk that she might be angling for a unity ticket. Hey,
That's
Biden,
an interesting idea.
If you really want to put the screws to DeSantis or any of these Trump guys, put Cheney as your VP, and maybe walk away with Indiana, maybe peel off Ohio even.
Crazy shit has happened.
Because right now, Opie is beating Vance. He's beating the Trumper in Ohio in the Senate polls. I mean, it's looking like
you've
Ohio
never heard
might
our
be back in
affectionate
play.
nickname, Opie, what's his the fresh-faced little redhead boy?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Oh Jesus, you're gonna ask me right now. I just got so used to calling him Opie.
Senator from Ohio, right?
Now, well, he's a representative from Ohio.
Okay.
He's looking to be senator from Ohio.
Hold on, we're gonna look it up real quick. We're gonna Google that shit. No, it's not Jim Jordan. Jesus fucking Christ! Why can't I remember this guy's name?
I know, right? It's so like
we've been calling him Opie for so damn long,
right? You're gonna make me look it up.
Sad. You're supposed to be the guy that knows.
I know, but I keep on calling him Opie. It's
not Tim Ryan.
Yes,
it is Tim Ryan. He went great.
Ryan.
He's no longer Opie. We can't call him Opie anymore. I'm sad.
It's Ryan. It's Tim Ryan. There we go. I mean, with someplace like Ohio in play, with a blue dog Democrat, like Tim Ryan, and you still got what's his face out of Maryland hanging about, conservative Democrat who you look around and you're like, who votes with the party, unlike two other quote unquote conservative Democrats. But you look at him, he's like, well, I'm here to support business. I'm like, you're here to get paid, you asshole.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
speaking of these elections, I'm starting to notice some trends, David, in school boards. So I got curious. It's a generic enough topic that I'm just going to stay generic, but a LinkedIn connection of mine had made a post straight up about voting for a school board member in the vicinity of Grand Rapids, not the Grand Rapids School Board, but a neighboring system. And I was like, well, let's see what kind of person this individual would say out loud on a social media network for professional discourse that they're voting for. And I went and looked through this chick's point by points on the issues. And I figured out that this election season, and for the foreseeable 2 to 4 years, the dog whistle phrases to look out for in your local school board elections. There's this honorable sounding concept of transparency that they're talking about, which is basically the knuckle dragging shit-heeled dipshits that make up the majority of the parental population being given like play-by-play full notes on every single bit of every curriculum. And it's tied to another dog whistle of sticking to the basics, which they then phrase as, we're going to teach math and science and history and
no. Like, you have to remember, when they're saying they never include science when they say teaching the basics. They never include science. They make a point.
Have to go back and look to see how she phrased
it. It's always reading, writing, and math. They never say science.
Right. And so the idea is to take away the ability to frame anything in social contexts to leave science an open door to be science. Essentially, it's code for going back to the one room schoolhouse, school marm, lowbrow, basic shit you need to count bushels and produce for your farm in your Laura Ingalls fucking existence. And so the other one, of course, is CRT. Anybody that has CRT as an agenda item on their platform, period. That's it. That's all you need to know. If you see a bold heading for critical race theory or CRT, just don't even bother reading the paragraph that comes under it, because the fact that they even brought it up as an issue tells you who they are.
Yep.
Since it's not a thing and not an issue, it just tells you that they're trying to find a way to put a title on the concept that we should be socially aware of the racist history of our nation.
Or just that things happen. Like you don't even have to go so far as to say, like, I mean, this is how bad it is. It isn't even just the racist history of our nation. They would recoil in horror, like you poured water on the Wicked Witch of the West if you did that. Now, it's just any discussion of slavery happened and slavery was wrong. And by the way, we knew it was wrong when we did it. And that is all evidenced very clearly by primary sources. The people who were holding slaves knew what they were doing was wrong.
So I'm gonna cheat sheet on this this wacky bitch's website for a second. Let's see. So curriculum focused on the fundamentals, reading. Oh, she actually says science and history, reading, writing, math, science and history, topics augmented with 21st century skills. Parents' role in education. That's another red flag. Parents are responsible for their children, have a right to know what's being taught to their children, which is a shortcut for dumb fucks that don't understand how to look up their state curriculums, because it's not secret information. It never fucking was. In my entire fucking lifetime, it's never been a goddamn secret what anybody is teaching in school. It is a curriculum that is publicly available, but you have to be, a little more than a fuckwit to be able to figure out how to look it up. And so they want to put it right up front so they can get everybody all riled up and pissed off.
Well, and I want to take a moment to talk about the first thing, transparency, because the real issue is that, well, those educated sons of bitches are saying things. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And this, as someone with multiple degrees, including a law degree, that pisses me off is, listen, when I'm talking about law, you know what Lucas does? He shuts the fuck up. Why? Because I know more about law than he does. When we're talking about history, Lucas shuts the fuck up because I know more about history. When Lucas wants to talk about marketing, I shut the fuck up because I don't know shit, right? I recognize I stay in my goddamn lane because here's the cool thing. When I stay in my lane, I actually learn more about things by talking to people because I share information of, and apparently this is called neurodivergent by some people, which I think is actually also bullshit. I think it's just being called an educated individual. I share information that I have. Like, hey, well, this is how like the Tennessee Code Annotated deals with this. This is how the U.S. Constitution deals with this. This is how the rules of civil procedure deal with this. This is how the 30 Years War works or worked. This is how economics worked in Victorian England. These are things that I've studied. This is how Balkans Islam compares to Arabian Islam. They're different things, right?
Yeah,
I've learned these things, and I want to share them with you, and so that you know. And when Lucas has stuff that he wants to tell me, he tells me. This transparency thing is all about. I feel bad that someone knows something that I don't know, and it makes me mad because I just basically spun a wheel and stuck my finger on the wheel and decided that was what was going to be reality. Right. I didn't bother to learn about it. I didn't bother to do research about it. And instead of listening to the people who actually took the time to learn, like teachers, right? These teachers took the time to learn this stuff. Well, and more than that, then they turn around and when they don't know something, they build a lesson plan based on people who had to go and learn this stuff.
She goes on to include diversity, equity, and inclusion, social emotional learning, and COVID-19 in her issues. So you know these red flags, especially if COVID-19 is considered an issue by a candidate, you know that they're an anti-mask, anti-vax whack job.
Yeah.
You know, you could consider like remote education options would be a way that a responsible individual would phrase that topic, but no.
I'm gonna come back to this little phrase by Olivia here, and I want to come to the end of her things. We have zero skilled workforce and a need to grant more immigration to fill the gaps. These people have zero cause and effect thinking. I swear they do have zero cause and effect thinking, and for the most part, what they're looking for is emotional validation.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Back to your democratization of feelings.
Yeah, what they're looking for is emotional validation of they want to be lazy. They don't want to learn stuff. They especially don't want to learn stuff that makes them. And because here's the thing, it's very much like a fat guy either going or not going to the gym, right? If if you're like morbidly obese and you want to go to the gym, a lot of people who are in that situation might say, well, I'm going to be made fun of and I don't want to go to the gym. And then they just stay morbidly obese. Then you have other people who are morbidly obese who say, you know what, I need to get, in shape. I'm going to go to the gym. And if I get laughed at, that's going to suck. But it's better that I get in shape. These are people who sit on the outside of the gym eating their Twinkies by shoving them by the caseload in their face. Right? And say, don't make fun of me. And therefore, they won't touch anything that involves them having to learn something that contradicts whatever they thought they knew, right? It's entirely about emotional validation for them. And it's about stuffing the intellectual equivalent of Twinkies in their face.
Having to change or having to learn means having to change, or having to embrace change means having to learn. And it's a ultimate resistance. Oh, while we're getting you riled up, David, tell us about the headless baby.
Jesus Christ, this thing pisses me the fuck off to no fucking end. I swear to God.
I'm glad I timed that so that you could already have the cigarette.
Spit fucking fire on this shit. Woman in Louisiana, 6 months pregnant, they do the ultrasound. Fetus doesn't have a fucking head. Doesn't have a head. What would be a head is just kind of a soft, mushy mass. Right? Now, before the Supreme Court had the genius fucking idea that they were going to overturn Roe v. Wade and issue this Dobbs decision, the solution would have been very simple. All right, we're going to terminate the pregnancy right now before anything else goes wrong, and make sure that you don't get septic, that you don't get sick, that that basically what is a lifeless, not quite lifeless corpse, because it's still getting fed by your body, but it will not survive outside the womb for any time whatsoever. And before it dies in utero, because it doesn't have a fucking head. We'll just abort this. And
keep talking. I'm going to fix lights.
Now we have this situation in which we can't. They can't do that. They can't terminate the pregnancy because of all the fucking things that does work on this serious, this edsel of a fetus. The heartbeat is beating. So under Louisiana law, since the heart is technically beating, they can't abort it.
God damn. That's ridiculous.
And it gets worse. I mean, you and I were talking about.
Hold on. My mental scenario in any discussion about this is, well, I read a thing on the internet once about a headless chicken that they were feeding through a hole and it lived. I can just see all these fucking Bubba Cajun dumb fucks trying to justify shit with absolutely no science. And by the way, I figured out why my lighting.
Just to clarify, and this is one of the things that these heartbeat bills don't differentiate.
Right.
Is the fetus's heart actually beating? No. It has heart cells which are being stimulated. It doesn't actually have a heartbeat because it doesn't have a circulatory system. The reason you have a heart is to pump blood through your body through what's called
So is the headless baby still just in there, or
no,
has she...
it finally died, and luckily that was enough for them to finally remove it. But
That
then on the
canceled the
other hand,
heartbeat.
you have on the flip side of stupid, now in South Carolina, or no, is it South Carolina or Florida? You have this teenager,
Interchangeable in most cases.
you have this teenager, 15 years old, got pregnant. She is technically a ward of the state because she lives in a foster care situation, which means the state is her guardian. Now, since no one will take possession of her, her foster family said, yes, we believe an abortion is appropriate in this situation. And the state said, well, she doesn't have a guardian. So she sued and she said, well, you're my guardian, make a decision. To which the court would not even take possession of the issue. They basically said, well, the state doesn't have to give you a decision, and you're not mature enough to have an abortion. Mature enough to get knocked up, but not to have an abortion. This is my problem. You have to make a decision. If teenagers are old enough to have children, then they're old enough to smoke, drink, vote, do whatever the fuck they want. Period. End of sentence. Emancipation happens the moment you get hard or the moment you bleed. Pick one.
Fair enough.
I mean, at that point, we're done. At that point, if that's going to be the rule, if that's going to be how we're going to do this, then Susie Rottencrotch and Billy, the moment the plumbing tells everyone that it's working, then they should be emancipated at that point. But of course, we're not going to do that. I mean, it is absolute insanity. It is not a society, as I like to say, of pro-life. It is a society of simply anti-choice. It has no basis in reality. You had a woman, and this is where I'm switching, maybe switching the two, South Carolina and Florida, because in one of the other two, I know one was in one place and one was in the other. Woman had a miscarriage, right? She was so afraid, and her doctors were so afraid that she'd be charged with terminating her pregnancy, that she had to bring in her miscarriage in a cup so that they could test it and make sure she hadn't used abortifacients. What the actual fuck?
I got nothing.
I mean,
I have no way to logic that one out.
I mean, it's such insanity.
Why don't we cheer things up and talk about chips?
Oh God. Well, I mean, that's not going to make me that much happier either. So,
I know.
So, when I was doing a solo show a little bit ago, I talked about corporate welfare and the CHIPS Act, and lo and behold, here we go. Congress just signed this big bill giving all these tax breaks and all this money to chip manufacturers. And what do they announce this week? They're cutting manufacturing because they've overproduced now, according to them. And instead of taking that money and continuing to build more chips to compete, no, they're cutting back funding. They're probably about to go into layoffs. And what are they going to do with all that money? Oh, apparently the shareholders would like another dividend.
Yeah, I was about to say.
We, the American taxpayers, just handed the chip manufacturers and their shareholders a massive dividend. That's all we did. We did not improve chip manufacturing in the United States. We did not address the issues of the chip supply chain. No. All we did was take that money and literally transfer the wealth of the republic into the hands of shareholders. Honestly.
Yep.
I am not normally, those of you who watch the show, and Lucas definitely knows, I am not normally Sanders' biggest fan. He is not my cup of tea. It's not that I necessarily disagree with him. I just don't think he thinks these things out very much. And he kind of gets old man yells at cloud on some things. This time he's not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he should be pissed. I mean, it's literally insane that this is happening, that Congress passed this act to improve supply chain of chips. And the response of chip manufacturers who lobbied for this was, thanks for passing that. Now we're cutting back production.
Yep. And to take it all home, Elon Musk has shown his cards.
Hit the button, Lucas. Hit the button. There it is.
The title's in the way now.
Move the title.
There we go.
There it is. There it is. So
it's been a few weeks. It's been a minute since
David... I've had a hate boner from Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So this week, Elon Musk blatantly said the only reason he said he could do his Hyperloop, which for those of you who aren't familiar with this, it was a train system that Elon Musk said he wanted to build in a vacuum tube to run from Los Angeles to San Francisco at hyper speeds. Now, he wasn't really able to explain how he was going to deal with inertia or any of those things, but he wanted to show that he could shoot a train from Los Angeles to San Francisco at hyper speeds. Nothing about this project
train load.
Right. Nothing about this project has ever suggested that it was financially responsible or feasible. And he revealed today, he's like, oh no, I don't have no intention of ever building the Hyperloop. I just wanted to stop California from doing what they were talking about doing at the time, which was building a normal, functioning, high-speed rail network. He just didn't want them to do it.
Yeah.
I hate this man so very much.
I can't figure out what his problem with a high-speed train would be, aside from it cutting into the sales of cars.
Well, it's not the sales of cars. It is that Musk is a hyper libertarian. He really is. And he believes that any spending of government money, except when they spend it on him, is bad. Right? That's his basic thing. Whenever government interferes with him, it's bad. Whenever government gives him money, it's great. But whenever they say, hey, there are labor standards, goddamn interfering government. He is a nut job extraordinaire. He's a terrible engineer. He's a terrible human being. All I can say is thank you to his eldest child who has disowned him. You know, like at least you stood up to Daddy Warbucks there and kicked him straight in the nads publicly. But I mean, he's literally a cartoon villain. And people keep on trying to buy his shit. And luckily, the more cartoon villainous he gets, the less people buy his shit. And I am kind of happy about that, because he's getting to this point where he's trying to one up his own cartoon villainy because he wants to be in the press. It's likely Twitter is going to crush him. He's like, oh, well, it's all bots. And like, he's even got his rumor mill going like, oh, the suit is going to reveal that 80% of Twitter is bots. I highly doubt 80% of Twitter is bots. I would say at most you're probably looking at 30%.
And he's just butthurt about Twitter in general.
Well, no, he's not. It's not even that he's butthurt about it. He did the entire thing just to grab headlines. That's all he does. He is the financial world's Trump without being and honestly, I think that's where he would like to go. If he could run for president, I feel like he would. But he is another Trump. He is this species of financial critter, and I hate using that word critter, but it just came out of my mouth, and I'm going to run with it.
Shoe fits.
Creature is better. He's this species of financial creature that just simply walks around and abuses all sorts. He abuses his workers. He abuses his investors, and he somehow turns around and convinces people to like, at least a certain segment of people to like it. And he convinces them to like it. And I feel like more so than Trump, I feel like Trump is like a masochist diviner. He's sitting there with like his divining rod and pointing it around, right? He's waving around like, oh, there's some guy who really loves pain. Come to me. Come. Show me your wallet. Show me your wallet. Is there more than $5 in that wallet? Then you should give it all to me.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you can't look at Tesla or the Boring Company or any of his other boondoggles and say that these are actually good ideas. The only like good semi-good system that he's been able to produce has been his power wall in Australia, and half of that is the Australian government.
I don't know what my camera decided to do to me.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, like, you blinked out of existence there, and now I'm looking at you in profile there. You got the little...
That's what we're gonna get for a minute. Apparently, looking at my monitor settings for a second brought us this quality experience. Keep talking. I'll play with it. I'm gonna duck out for a second.
So I mean, it's just absolutely bad business. It's absolutely bad business. And Olivia, the all gusto, no follow through. It's, but the no follow through is intentional. I think that's the difference between someone who's just a braggart and Elon Musk. He has no intention of ever finishing any of these projects, ever. He buys the contracts. He tells people he can do things, and he takes tons of money, and he doesn't even structure in a way where it's a proper loss, right? It's like Uber. Uber doesn't structure their company to provide investors with sufficient grounds, sufficient information to claim their investment as a loss. The airlines do that great, right? That's what investing in an airline is for. Investing in an airline is for losing money. If you're rich, you go buy airline bonds or airline stock, and it sucks and it's terrible, and you lose money, and you declare it on your taxes. Musk is looking at pensioners, people on hourly wage, and asking them for money. Bill Gates doesn't ask someone making $15 an hour to fund his next new stupid project. Warren Buffett doesn't ask people working day jobs to invest in Berkshire Hathaway. Elon Musk is more evil in that he is constantly asking people like are watching the show, people like me, people like Lucas, to give him money, and that is somehow it's either going to make them money, which he never makes sure never to promise, like, but he expects it. He's selling an idea of, I am Musk. That's it. That's all he's selling. He's not a good engineer. He's not good at his entire project, and it's terrible. We're gonna see if Lucas can figure out, because I'm pretty sure all y'all are talking. I mean, I'm watching Lucas in the back in the back studio here, busily running around trying to figure out how he can reboot his camera. I guess I don't know what he's doing. This is an interesting exercise.
I don't know what I'm doing either. So it's a full studio. It's a full studio now. We get to, like, we can have multi-camera. I can talk over here, and I can go. And now to you, David. So anyway, let's talk about beer, and then while you talk about your beer,
how the fact that last week I was the total fuck up.
I know.
This week you're the total fuck up.
I went to check a monitor setting, and simply opening the preferences just made this poor little Logitech camera just say fuck off, and it left. So we're gonna go to the beer, and you're gonna talk about your beer, and I'm gonna duck out of the studio entirely and come right back. So, plan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the part of the show where we talk about our first beers. What you drinking? So, David, it's you first on your beer. Which one do you want to talk about?
We're going to talk about this hibiscus wit first, and I'm going to let you duck all the way out because I can talk about this for a little while. So, first of all, this is supposed to be a Vit beer. I want you to look at this. What? it's red. It's red. When I first poured it, I was a little shocked. And then I kept on thinking about it, and I'm like, well, okay, it's got hibiscus in it, and maybe it's the hibiscus coloring that's doing this. But I mean, I've seen hibiscus mixed with other things without this sort of ruby red color to it. It does drink a little bit like a wit. The hibiscus, though, is definitely fruiting it a bit. It's not. I mean, it's behaving a lot like a wit. It's not. It's not overly foamy. It's got. If you can see, it's still got bubbles moving in there. You can see a little bit along this edge here. So it's well carbonated, and it's still bubbling. But I mean, it's a very interesting combination. It's almost like if you muddled the orange in the blue moon, except not orange, more like hibiscus imparts kind of a sweet, almost berry-like flavor mixed with honey, and that's what this is really kind of coming across as. I gotta say, it's not a mow the lawn beer, but it is a good beer. It is a solid beer. If someone were to have this on tap, and I was looking around thinking about what I was going to drink, I would not turn this down. I would not kick it out of bed for eating crackers. Very solid. And look, he fixed it.
I figured out what happened. It was Chrome. And I love nothing more than getting to blame a non-Apple product for my problems. So Chrome decided to shit the bed and not have access to the main camera just because I took a peek at some settings. So don't know why. I had to quit Chrome and come all the way back. Totally brand new. I did appreciate, by the way, this one little. Now we get professional background, Lucas, because there is a version of meetings where I can turn the other wall and it's a little bit less busy. Though doing what I did in the background now is more universal. So I'm glad that I could work that out because it was going to be real fucking uncomfortable to sit like this for the rest of the night.
Yep.
Anyway, so beer, yeah. Mine is currently part of a really cool set, case, collection, variety pack, however you want to phrase it. So Bell's is doing this summer thing right now, which is the Fighter Flight. And it got my attention just because it was so goddamn tacky. But in the most perfect way. I don't personally prefer the design, but it jumped off the shelf in the way that it looks. It's so very Miami in the 80s. Here's the can.
There it is.
And they have this flamingo theme going on. There are 4 different flavors.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of Cheekwood in the Pineapple Room.
Okay. Yeah.
See that? So for those of you who don't know, Cheekwood is an art museum here in Nashville, and they are famous for the Pineapple Tea Room, where if you are a high society lady of a distinguished age, you are likely to be found there for lunch or other things from like 12 to like 3 o'clock. And it is a very 70s, 60s, 70s, approaching 80s decor, but tastefully done. But it's stuff like the flamingo, because again, it's the Pineapple Room.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, so this variety pack, it's got 4 flavors. I like 2 of the 4 definitively more, but a lot of people know that I'm not a big sour fan, but fruited sour apparently is the secret to getting me to drink a sour. We did a little river float this week. Rented some tubes. Special shout out to AAA Canoe and Tube Rental, or whatever the hell their very creative business name is. I'm sure they would be just thrilled with our politics on this show anyway. But great little spot, little small business making the bucks, carting people to the river, putting them in floating craft and giving them the shove. So we did this nice little relaxed river tube float, and we were looking for, what beer thing can we bring, and this was great because it's got a really light, drinkable, almost seltzery kind of vibe. So this one's the session ale with blood orange from the Flamingo series in the Fighter Flight. It's fighter like fighter jet, not fight or.
But I'm looking at you. Well, no, your next one doesn't have a bird involved. I was about to be like, I understand the thing if it was like bird and then fight, and I'm like, okay.
Well, they're all
Flamingo
to some extent. So the case is ginger lime flamingo fruit fight, which is where the fight thing comes from.
Which
raspberry flamingo fruit fight. The cherry flamingo fruit fight, and blood orange fruit fight. This is the only one that doesn't actually have flamingo in its full name, but in the general heading for the collection is the flamingo fruit fight. I didn't realize how hard of a time I would have saying that. So I don't
flamingo fruit flight, flamingo fruit fight. Well, nope, can't do it.
I don't have like a desire to go seek this out like other blood orange things. I'm a blood orange sucker, an orange sucker in general. I wouldn't say, oh my god, that one was great. Like there's plenty of blood orange stuff where I'd be like, oh, I want a bunch of that. But it's a good, refreshing beer, and it was especially appropriate as a bring it on the floaty cooler and drink it while you float down the river. So I enjoy it. I think it's refreshing. I've been looking for ways to go not IPA, but lighter, but summer, but not like funky. And this goes through its stages well of getting warmer without getting gross. They clearly contemplated people are going to be outdoors in the summer drinking this beer, and it's not going to stay cold all the time, and it doesn't have to be ice cold to be good. And I dig that. So it's pretty good stuff.
What river were you floating down? Because currently I'm imagining, like, from my perspective, like the Harpeth is nasty. We stopped floating down that a while ago, and literally there's a billboard not too far from my work that says, "I'd rather skinny dip in the Cumberland than go to the dentist," which gives you the idea of how bad the Cumberland River is.
Well, so interestingly enough, as much of a general population of shitheels you could hit with a dead cat slung from a rooftop in any given Michigan city, this state does a pretty good job taking care of its natural environments and resources. And
so the river that goes through your city is not,
well, that's the Grand River.
Fire prone?
The Grand River runs all the way across the state. So the Grand River is not perfect because it is involved with Detroit and Grand Rapids on its way between lakes. But the little rivers that feed into it are usually, and I don't have facts about the Grand River, so I'm trying to avoid making a definitive statement that it's either clean or not. I think it's kind of down the middle. But this one is the Rogue River, which apparently got a name change because of a misprint on a major release of a map. And it used to be the Rouge River, but that would be really fucking confusing since Ford over in the Detroit vicinity was famously located on the River Rouge. So I guess it was a fortunate typo, but people spell it both ways and they're technically correct.
Yeah. Have I told you they've stopped floating people down the Harpeth?
That seems weird to me because that's the one that I was
you want to know
on in canoes as a kid.
Because you have to remember that that's also a major source of drinking water for the city. And people were, with 1.5 million people were kind of junking it up and not being good.
And yes, Olivia makes a good point. There's a lot of federal conservation funding for water sources. So we do a little extra thing most people are familiar with. We give Brian a shot when he wants to give us a commentary with whatever he's got going on tonight. So Brian's contribution to the break is THC delivery vehicle of choice, Triangle Kush. Smelly and sticky and just wonderful. 27% strong. Makes life a lot more fun. Hopefully it makes us more fun. That being said, it's time for me to start the fun. So David is both looking forward to and not into my topic.
Here's what I found out. My eyes are gonna like at some point roll back into my head like
they're gonna roll over so fast that they're gonna look like they're still straightforward. Got it.
Right. It's just
so this morning in my meeting with one of the I would say a local activist, but the phrase activists here in Grand Rapids has started to have varied receptions. I still consider activist to be a good term. I always enjoy meeting someone who describes himself as an activist. I would consider activist a broad statement. And that's the issue we're having in town right now, is that there's a lack of understanding that activists come in a lot of shapes, sizes, and methods of operation. So the thing that I've also been aware of is that the local activist culture has been fragmenting, and what had been a pretty united bubble around the murder of Patrick Lyoya has dissolved into multiple petty, drama-laden factions of groups of people. And the commonality that's happening with these folks is that they're all, I think at this point, I don't get to lay this one on you, these aren't Gen Y, these are Gen Z people, upper, older end of Gen Z people that are shitting the bed on keeping things together. And what I'm noticing is splitters. I'm noticing it's like the left. When I got here, I was like, where is the unified left in this region? Like, what's the go-to group to be able to get in touch with all the other groups? And unlike a lot of cases, you can't kind of like start from one place and get a little info. Like, even as fucked up as the Tennessee Democratic Party is, you can grab somebody at the Tennessee Democratic Party and say, hey, who are all the leftists operating in the vicinity? And they can usually tell you, oh, there's these guys, and these guys. They're not all on the same page, but here's all the people. And around here, it was like you couldn't even find out who the fuck. Like, it was just a disorganized mess. And then Lyoya happened. And then apparently these people cannot seem to keep their shit together in their rudderless, leaderless bubble. And this is a problem that I started really harping on with Occupy, because Occupy was essentially directionless, full of shit, leaderless, headless garbage that got nothing accomplished except camping in places.
And I want to point out, like, Occupy, and I know you like to use them as an example, and it's valid. It is valid to use them as an example for some things, which is people who have no idea what they're actually arguing against. So many times with the Occupy movement, and I think you and I would agree, like, you and I look at Newsroom, the HBO series Newsroom, in very different ways a lot of the time. But one place where I think you and I can both agree is their depiction of Occupy and how it behaved.
Yeah.
And it was nonsense. It was a bunch of, and I say this as an academic. I say this as someone very steeped in academia. Academia is useless if you don't pull your own head out of your ass on occasion. There are fields in which you can just stay in a book the entire time and believe that's how things are supposed to work. English literature, that's a good example. Foreign language studies, yeah, okay. Economics, no. And that's one of the problems that I see even on the conservative side of economics, is that a lot of these people don't pull their own heads out their asses to actually understand what they're looking at. I feel it's one of the places where people are quite correct when they say, economists are full of shit. And the reason economists are full of shit is because all they're doing is looking at raw numbers and not tying that to any sort of real world value. And I think the Occupy movement was very much like, well, indigenous people have been oppressed. Yes. So we should give them back all their land. Hey, oh, okay, guys.
That shit's still going on.
I know.
In
Right?
these local younger activist groups here. And I see stuff that, from other areas that gets talked about. And I get the point, but sometimes the most Brinksman ridiculous thing you can say isn't the correct contribution to the conversation. I feel like when you nail people down, they'll admit, oh, well, yeah, I know it's not practical. Like, we're never going to just give people back their land. But it got me in the conversation. Well, dumb fuck, if you had actually like a clue about what the fuck you showed up to talk about in the first place, you also could have gotten in the conversation.
No, I mean, and that's, I think that's the problem is I feel like the Occupy movement, I feel, was so overly academic to the point of insanity, of people who had completely lost touch with the reality of the situation, which was, okay, what are concrete steps? I mean, this is always the thing where I get in trouble when I'm pitching ideas to people with too much money or people who are in charge, which is, I'll build out, and you've seen me do it, from toes to hair, how something should work. And I'll be like, these are the, I will go up like the statue of Hammurabi. These are the feet. Like, I will start at the feet. Like, I'll be like, yes, I understand. We start at the feet of clay, and then we go to the legs of iron, like the thighs of iron, and then we go to, like, the dick of bronze, and then the torso of steel, and then we get to the shoulders of silver and the head of gold. But the thing is that's what you have to do, right? And they'll get really. I've been yelled at because, I mean, like, yes, this is the head of gold, and this is how you get to the head of gold, which is you start out at the feet of clay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get to it, because there's no other good way to get there. I feel like there are a lot of people who get very focused on head of gold and don't understand feet of clay.
So here's what's frustrating to me. To me, this trend has been happening in front of me. And it started with Occupy and Gen Y having no idea what the fuck they were doing. And then it moved into the Bernie thing, where people were showing up completely unprepared to vote in primaries. They didn't even understand how they worked, but they wanted to bitch about being shut out. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You're not even fucking registered in a state that doesn't let you show up and register on election day. That's your fucking oversight.
Yep.
You don't get to say, oh, the system was rigged against Bernie. They didn't know it then, but they sound like fucking Trumpers.
Feet of clay, then feet of clay.
You move on. That group is older and less of the major problem at this point. Now you have this Elder Z section coming in with no fucking clue how things work. And it's a lack of even caring to learn how shit works in a lot of cases. And then this weird shutout. The thing that I can say, and I'm gonna self-own, but also still aggrandize my Gen X cohort. So self-own, most of my people starting at teenage years said meh and just checked the fuck out. Just said fuck it, meh.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
That was the response, was meh. And then those of us that stayed plugged in, what we did was look at, okay, what did the elders do right and what did the elders do wrong? What lessons did I learn from the elders that are staying with me for my whole life, aka my grandmother teaching me a deep sense of fairness and a low tolerance for bullies, which is why you see me go apeshit the way I do now. I learned how to be a bully and figured out you got to bully bullies. You got to hurt bullies. Bullies only learn through pain. So I'm going to bring pain. And then I'm going to look for unfair things, even if they don't affect me, because an unfair inequity in my culture affects me in the long run.
Yeah.
And that's why I resonated with Obama when he said in his famous 2004 speech, like, a better educated child in my community benefits my community, whatever. I'm paraphrasing the big deal speech. Go look it up. But that was like, oh, he said the shit I think. He also said the shit that I was taught as a value in my family. I'm down with this guy. Now you have all these fucking people like, oh, he's part of the establishment. Fuck him. Only thing that's good is under 25 years old with no plan. Well, fuck off. And now they've ruined a perfectly good opportunity for unity in the city I'm in now. And I don't really know where that line gets drawn.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you. Thank
So
you.
the boomer light thing that younger folks interpret out of us Gen Xers is that we were actually willing to listen to how shit works from people that were around before us.
But I think that's the problem is, and that I would point out as a millennial, is it didn't work. It was the assumption that it worked. Literally, you know, there's Isaac Asimov when he wrote Foundation. He wrote this big sweeping series about the collapse of civilization, of a future civilization that was interstellar and all these things. And
it's a show now. Also.
Well, now they're starting it off as a show, but it's actually like a 4-book series.
Right.
But it was only supposed to be a trilogy, but other people
been pretty well injected back into pop culture at this point.
Yeah. Cool. So that exactly. That's why I bring it up. But if you actually read the books, one of the things that's kind of interesting about how he describes some of these things about like technology is people always just assumed this stuff would work. And then when it didn't, they had no idea what to do. They built around an idea of something that was already broken, right? And I think that's one aspect where I come to it as a millennial and say, this was already broken. This was broken a long time before the boomers got here. And the boomers just kept on repeating something that was broken, that did not do what it was supposed to do. Like things like the U.S. Constitution. I don't know a single boomer or Xer who will actually stand up and say, no, we need a new U.S. Constitution because what we have right now, it's not the literal word of God. It's not any of those things. It's a broken government. It's a broken document designed to organize government.
No. I think you're getting generationally accurate responses because I agree with you about it. But I also give you the generationally accurate Gen X response of good luck, buddy. Where the boomers scream heresy when you suggest it's not a holy document.
I think Gen Xers,
people like me have looked at that and said, yeah, that's why good luck, buddy. Because you're going to have to wait for these people to die. And the perpetuating problem that we're having here is that we're setting up these generational habits that no one's looking forward in the age group. So by the time I'm the old people and you're the one that gets to get the bullshit that you're trying to give me, the alphas are going to be trained that the way society works is that you just blow off and say fuck you to everybody that's been around for a minute, and you never need to learn anything from them. Again, and that will never fix any of this shit.
The problem is that you have to look around and say, what have Xers actually added beyond maybe some aspects of voter engagement? I will give Xers that. Voter engagement, I will give that. At least in the realm of politics, labor, or anything else. If I look around and look at and say boomers got all the stuff and then told everyone not to use it, Xers not only didn't get a good portion of the stuff, they were still getting the residuals of what the boomers got.
Well, we're going to get there eventually. When we're dead and they've run out of names for generations, Bazoomers will come around.
Right.
You should like make a foundation and
trademark that. I need to trademark that name right now. The Bazoomers.
Your grandchildren can get
the kids that were born during the pandemic. The Bazoomers. They, I feel like your generation got more out of stuff than my generation did. Like, for instance, if you look at the amount of federal funds spent on people, boomers got 71 cents out of every federal dollar paid in tax. Gen Xers got something like 50 cents. Your generation got something like 50 cents. My generation got 17 cents. Right? I think the level of screwed doesn't necessarily translate the right way between generations, because the level of screwed increased so exponentially so quickly that I think sometimes Xers have a hard time understanding. I don't think you understand how there was no lube. There was no lube. You got lube at 50 cents. You got lube. 17 cents. There was no lube.
Right. But I will say this: for me, there's a kamikaze to what's going on. And I don't actually think Gen Y, millennials, I don't think that this is a thing. I think you guys have come and joined us over here in the reasonable levels of risk crowd. I don't notice a shit ton of Gen X and Gen Y people spending all their money getting themselves out of jail because they managed to get themselves arrested because they didn't understand the legal limits of what they should and shouldn't do in public. Because we all learned some shit before we took to the streets, and you guys have joined us in that effort. But this younger crowd is like,
Wait,
I get arrested all the time.
When were Xers in the streets?
Hmm?
When were Xers in the street? Besides the LA riots, which was definitely your generation. Besides
a really
the
good
LA
example.
riots,
That's what I was about to say.
Which had no control. I want to point out that was even worse than the Occupy riots, because there was no control, no nothing. And as bad as conservatives tried to paint the George Floyd riots, if you ask a lot of people in LA, the Rodney King riots were, well, not as productive.
So to answer your question, it's not when were all the time, it's when are. And when I'm out at a demonstration, I see a very clear difference between the Gen X and Y folks that kind of understand this is what we're here for, this is what we're going to do, versus the younger crowd that seems to want the attention that's negative in the wrong way. Oh, I'm going to just keep on going until I get arrested. And
I want to point out that ironically, that tracks generally with. However, but here's the problem: is that you're looking at that tracks generally with protest movements in general.
Well, and that was what I was going to give you, that because you and I were talking a little bit about it before the show, and I was going to give you the tee up to talk about that a little bit. Like, is it just always a problem of age? And it's right now, everybody that's under 35 appears to have no fucking clue, because everybody has always had no fucking clue.
Right. Like, so for clarification for everyone, we were talking a little bit about like how movements fracture before the show, because we were getting into this a little bit, because I was preparing myself for Lucas to do old man yells at cloud routine. And so I'm like, listen, leftist movements have a long history of fracturing. The very labor unions that we have today and the way they're organized are the result of horrific fracturing, right? The major labor union here in the United States is the American Federation of Labor Consolidated Industrial Organizations, or Confederated Industrial Organizations. I forget
whichever. The AFL and the CIO were separate things.
Right, but they of themselves were amalgamations of other labor unions that were also fractured in and amongst themselves. I mean, like, if you've ever like dug down into labor unions and how they and the number of different unions that are hanging out underneath those two,
a lot,
those two monikers of AFL and CIO.
It's basically them or the Teamsters, right? So it's essentially three major columns under which you can file, or I guess SEIU is now.
The SEIU is outside the AFL-CIO.
Yeah, so I guess it's four major.
But no, the Teamsters are part of the AFL-CIO. They're just like the biggest, like meanest.
That's a good point. Yeah,
one in the AFL-CIO.
Yeah. So here's the thing that I would say to that, and this is the thing that really bothers me. This is the thing that gets under my skin about where we are in the now. This bandwagon sheep thinking really is a problem to me. And I don't see that before the younger end of Gen Y and the Zs. What I'm used to, and this is why I get Gen X pissed, is my people didn't give a fuck what you thought. So if there were 5 guys,
What?
are you gonna let me finish?
Yeah, I know. If there
were 5 guys
setting
standing
my rebuttal.
around, and one of them came up with an opinion, and the other 4 of them, this is all Gen X people, and I'm saying guys because it's a funny visual of fucking Kevin Smith to bring to your head. But if 5 people are standing on a sidewalk, one of them has an idea, 3 of them hate it. That 4th odd person, if they like it, is going to tell the other 3, well, fuck you, I still agree with him. Right now, where we are in the culture is that none of these people have the fucking balls to do that. They just quietly go, oh, the herd and the bandwagon don't like them or what they say now. I have to go with them now. I'm sorry. Bye.
Yeah.
And I'm fucking over that.
That never happened.
Except it's happened here in Grand Rapids, creating a sprig.
I'm just telling you, like that what you're describing has always been the case. It's never not been the case.
I don't think so. I think our American history was built on people saying, "No, fuck you, this guy's right."
Oh God, it's the exact opposite. It's the 100% the exact opposite.
I absolutely disagree.
Okay. I'm going to tell you right now.
I think people had more balls to stand up for what they actually think and who they actually agree with, even if it's a little controversial, prior to this butthurt thing that came along in your age group.
No. That's never been a thing. No. Hey, dude, if you want to see how bad like follow the leader gets, let's just look at boomer architecture. Right. Let's look at what happened there. Brutalism, no. Also, that color of orange and that color of yellow, no. But you know what? We're going to keep on putting that up anyway.
What are you talking about?
I'm just
doesn't have a generational categorization. It just has ages of influence in art and style.
Right, but that's the thing is it's influence, right? It's influence. It's the same currency that's being transacted amongst those 5 guys you just pointed out, and amongst people like deciding what they're going to build and what's going to look pretty or what they're going to like. It's still the same thing. It's still influence.
And you know what? I know you think I'm just trying to pick on Gen Y, but in my meeting this morning where we discussed the splintering of these local organizations, we discovered really what the culprit is, and it's not simply me saying. It's because Gen Y sucks and Gen Z sucks. It's not me saying somehow the boomers managed to both raise Gen X. Hold on. It's not just me saying the boomers managed to raise Gen X and Gen Y somehow in the same fucking households and came up with diametrically completely opposite fucking mentalities. It's none of that normal gripe. We figured out what it probably is, and it's the evils of the social media beast. That's the difference makers.
The social media
difference maker in this equation is of those 5 guys on the corner, the one has a controversial idea that the 3 don't like, but that last one that's willing to stick with them has none of the social ability to say, I'm doing that, and the others won't just say, yeah, whatever, we don't agree with him, but we don't hate his guts. Now we have this no consequences short-term communication vehicle where everybody has to bandwagon and trash somebody and go with the crowd, or the purity test has failed in front of the internet.
Give me. Okay, so this happens. This is actually an expected outcome.
Expected outcome of what?
Of high income inequality. This is actually
that's a ball I didn't expect you to throw into the table, but go ahead.
Yeah, this is actually an expected outcome of high income inequality. So it's actually a survival mechanism that gets triggered inside distressed societies. This is what we would see in a distressed society, is that behavior. It's not social media is part of it, It's definitely a part of it. It's
So
exacerbating
you're
it.
telling me in short form that Team Amber, Team Johnny was just a function of a distressed society.
Oh yes.
See, I
Greens,
think it's a function of an overly indulged narcissism via internet.
greens and purples. Greens and purples would be the classic historical example. Greens and purples. Constantinople under Emperor Justinian. Yes, go ahead and hit the history button.
Oh, right.
Constantinople under Emperor Justinian, plague infested, fighting a war in Italy, devoting mass amounts of resources to reclaim North Africa from the Vandals, and restore the Roman Empire. It's not going well. It's going okay, but it's taxing society ridiculously hard. People in Constantinople became obsessed with which team you belong to or you supported at the chariot races, green or purple. And it became a big thing about, like, if you were a political figure in the Byzantine Empire, of who you supported. Did you support the greens or did you support the purples? This sounds to us extremely fucking silly, but to Byzantine society, this was huge. Of if you were in the capital, you were either a green or a purple. A riot over the outcome of a race actually nearly toppled the government, because a riot from the purples forced Justinian and his wife Theodora to flee all the way to the boats. It was only when his wife Theodora, which I should clarify, her previous occupation before Empress was prostitute, balled up and said, Imperial purple is a good color for a funeral, and marched back into the city, that her husband was reminded, oh, I'm actually supposed to have testicles, and marched back into the city and put down the revolt. This is, but what was important was, under Justinian, even though Justinian is considered like this huge figure in classical, or, near classical history, this is the sort of pressure the society was under. How do we feed our people? How do we address income inequality? Because again, ironically, well, because even though the Western Empire was more wealthy, it inherited a lot of the problems of the old Western Roman Empire. Even though the Western Roman Empire had fallen, it still had a lot of the same problems about income inequality, class inequality, that were not sufficiently addressed, ironically, until things collapsed even worse. When things got worse, actually, then things kind of started to get a little better. But when you have these moments in history, in societies, when you have massive gulfs between the haves and the have-nots, you are more likely to see people gravitate towards, okay, what choice do I make to secure my social and possibly economic situation? And like you've seen me on multiple occasions look at that, like from my perspective, look at that and say, I'd rather secure my personal reputation than maybe my economic reputation. I'd rather stand up and say no and be a good guy. But the thing is, that's the outlier in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking people to be, by its very nature, the idea of the outlier in that situation is not the norm. It's the outlier.
Well, what I'm concerned with is that the concept of compromise is entirely lost, probably fueled by this self-aggrandized,
oh no,
have it hold up, have it the way I want it, online culture. And I feel like when I was coming up, before social media happened, people were okay to say, they've got an idea that's different from mine. I disagree with it, but it doesn't make them a piece of shit that I can't be seen with anymore. But now we've changed that.
No, And again,
that's
consistent.
all of these bandwagon things that I bitch about on a regular basis, the ones that personally offend me and have affected me versus even the ones that don't. It's, to me, it's manifesting everywhere. It's how the Republican Party has been infested by Trumpism.
And this is
the
what happens.
vilification. It should be okay for you in society in any way, in any arena, to be able to say, I'm not down with what they think about
income
that,
inequality.
but I'm still not gonna when
just
completely ostracize them from society because they have that idea.
It's Maslow's hierarchy, man. It's Maslow's hierarchy.
I want to throw Olivia's had a couple of meaty comments, and I don't want to miss those. In my 5 guy analogy, one guy decides to tell the other 3 to fuck off because he thinks the other guy is correct, doesn't inherently make the idea good. That's my point, is that I'm not arguing the idea is good, but if you could stick together as 5 people and get to the thing that you all did agree was good and just leave the guy alone about the shit you didn't happen to agree with and still work together, you could be effective. And I think we've murdered that face down in an alley in the social media information era. That's where this thesis is for me. And I realized that my people invented that shit. And I think it's because we had this rosy idea that, AOL was cute, but we can do better. And people like Zuck never stopped to say, there's a line and I don't want to cross it. Now, I do like this one. I don't even know if waiting for people to die is going to work to fix the issue. There are plenty of non-boomer people involved in bad policy. True. Alt-right movements. True. Federalist nonsense, etc. Yeah, I think we can do some unlearning generation to generation, but it's extremely slow. And that's the problem I have with the complete anti-incrementalist approach. There's just a level of incrementalism that has to occur because we are a species the way we are. I don't think incrementalism will ever be fully eliminated, but my approach, like when I come to the city playing hardball about wanting my street handled, the example that I give to these people is I spent 3 years in Nashville fighting to get simple safety improvements to a school zone, and I'm never going to be that patient again.
I think
that's the thesis that I give these people is like, you can take your civic bullshit time, but you're not going to take that much time again on my watch.
I'm going to come back to Maslow's hierarchy just real fast. As again, my counterpoint, which is
I want you to just basically close this out because we'll go to our next beer.
Because this is what happens when you have distressed societies. When you have distressed societies, especially because of wild, like for instance, and you are likely closer to you are a little bit closer to that, but I mean, the only way I'll ever own a house, likely in some place where I could use a house,
right,
is winning the lottery or suddenly being elevated into the ranks of the oligarchy. When you have distressed societies,
or inheritance, maybe. Where does that fall?
I mean, or like, I guess if I had like some random long lost relative suddenly like keel over, maybe that could work. But I mean, for the most part, when you have a distressed society where resources are increasingly concentrated in one point, I like to use the pot of water analogy a lot, which is, so when the water is moving fairly steady in a circle, like if you've got a pot of water, you're moving it pretty steady, water doesn't splash over, it doesn't get angry, it doesn't do anything. But the harder you push it, right, the more it splashes, the more violent it gets. As in this case, the water is resources, right? Mm-hmm. The water is the access to resources. As that gets harder to get at any point in that circle, right? As you move if you wildly shift the pot, that water decreases at that other end, right? And all of a sudden, that side doesn't have as much water, and this side does. And when you create these wild swings, then we revert to Maslow's hierarchy of, what do I need? I need food, shelter, and some level of security. Those are the base levels of Maslow's hierarchy. And the more we get close to having to defend those base levels of Maslow's hierarchy, the more important it becomes within a social group to be in the in group, right? The more essential it becomes to be in the in group. It's one of the reasons why society, I would argue right now, is polarizing as much as it is because if I'm in Clarksville and I want to be in the in group, then I need to be near fucking Nazis. If I'm in Portland and I want to be in the in group, then I'm probably better off with the radical communists. Right? I mean, but that's the thing, right? So you're looking at this and you're saying, well, we can't have this discussion. The reason we can't have the discussion is because when your very survival is on the line, I mean, I would not be in the position I am in currently if either before things started to fall apart, if I had better contacts and better people to help me, number one. But then once things did start to fall apart, the contacts that I did have moved me in the direction that I'm in right now. I, as a consequence, right, I'm with one group that helps make sure that I have food, shelter, and some level of security. Right. So it's in my interest to support that group. Gen Xers never experienced that in the same way. Boomers definitely never experienced that in the same way.
Well,
And I would,
my core frustration here, I think, is this notion that we live in right now that other people can dictate to you who to associate with.
again,
And
that's Maslow's hierarchy.
Their threat and their carried out punishment
because
is
exorcism.
pariah and shunning.
Yeah. You're exercised from the group. And that's what happens when we have that level of income inequality.
I don't really. A lot of these issues, though, have been going on for a minute,
But
and
but you have to look at the level of
a
income
lot of them are
inequality.
more petty. I mean, you're talking about
Yeah.
you're talking about if I were to look at some of the nerd culture drama back in the South that I've been exposed to, and some of that tribal petty
Yep.
shit, you're saying that I'm supposed to chalk that up to the pressures that you reference.
How do those nerds, at least for their social acceptance, where do they look towards? They need a social acceptance group. Again, the more resources become scarce for the majority versus the minority.
But
Now,
these are a bunch of people for whom resources have never fucking been scarce. That's the problem.
talking to a lot of those people, yeah, resources are scarce for them.
Not really.
I would argue that
That's probably a separate topic, but nah. Nah.
I mean, I would say that what we're seeing is, again, I think if we're looking for a root cause of why things are breaking down, it is income inequality. I think that when the Republican, and I'm going to say this right now, when they trigger a civil war, I think like the main amelioration that will arise out of said conflict is some level of pulling back from the investor shareholder class back to rebuilding a middle class and taking care of those below the middle class. I don't want to call them lower is not a word I want to use. Poor is not a word I want to use, but those who have even less access to resources. But I think that once they trigger that and they lose, because they will lose because they're fucking stupid, I think that is going to be the main course of amelioration of the initial causes of that conflict, is that this income inequality has to be redressed. And when the income inequality is redressed, then the social issues in many cases are redressed as well. The emphasis on racism, the emphasis on I don't like gay people, I don't like the bigotry, because the thing is, if I'm Bubba and I no longer feel like I'm competing with, I don't know, gay Bob or black people or immigrants or anything, if I no longer feel like I'm
Gay
competing
Bob is
with
where
them,
you come up.
right?
Gay Richard was just hanging out there waiting for you to grab the dick, and you come up with Gay Bob.
Yes, Gay Bob. But if I no longer feel like I'm competing with them for resources that I need, then that bigotry begins to recede, because I don't feel under threat as much anymore from the existence of people who are not like me.
I can give that thought some space for sure. Let's see how it goes. Right now, it's time for another round. More beer. If you've got them, pop them open. Here we go. So you went first last time. I'm going to go first this time. I'll continue down the fight or flight path with this. So the other one, as somewhat spoiler indicated earlier, was the ginger lime flamingo. Now, unlike the blood orange, this stands out for me as a both lime and ginger infusion that I would actually recall and go back to.
Oh no!
I have things to say about what's going on in your glass, but I'm gonna finish this, and then we're gonna get to your enormous your enormous melanin enhanced head that you have there, sir. So ginger and lime session ale. I mean, it would be an unremarkable session ale. I'm going to throw it out there. If you took those two flavors out, there's basically nothing the fuck going on. But because of those two flavors, it's an incredibly refreshing, just bitey enough situation that out of the whole pack, this is my fave. I also like this label a little more, even though it's doing the same damn thing the last one was doing. I think one of my problems is that Bell's branding in general kind of looks like Kirkland. It kind of looks like some Costco beer. Like if you just pass by it real fast, you might mistake it for Kirkland. Anyway, it's and it's not how they do all their branding. They have plenty of stuff that has like color in the logo, but this one they just chose the black and white. I like this one the best, and I think it's the most crisp, and I think it accomplishes the mission that's generally implied by the whole case here. And this one is a let's see, what is this? This is a 4%. So this is the lightest one in the bunch. So you could just slam the shit out of these as much as you would any, booze-based seltzer or whatever. It's not bad. It's good stuff. Again, the others, Raspberry Flamingo, Fruit Fight. It's a raspberry ale. Cherry Flamingo, Fruit Fight. Session Sour Ale with cherry, which I really hoped to like. Honestly, I tasted that one and I had great expectations, but it's very much on that sour end of the spectrum. It's that sour cherry that doesn't quite make you happy if you're not into it.
Like Canadian, like Canada Dry or something. Yeah.
Brian, you guys in your multi-spice beer are still cushioning it up like a big dog.
So David, I had
David,
to quickly,
what in the fuck?
I had to quickly pop off to wash down like the chocolate that like poured down on me.
Oh, yeah, I see what it is now on the list. I just realized I remembered which one it is. All right, this one's a mouthful.
Yes, this one is special.
Speaking of big black head,
right? I'd like a triple cookies and cream caramel macchiato cappuccino, please. So when it started to overfoam, I realized when it got on my shirt and it wasn't like kind of dissipating, I'm like, oh no, this is like getting like coffee on you, like this like chocolate on you. Before I start,
stout imperial double. It sounds fantastic, but once you poured it, I was really jealous. I want one. That looks amazing.
It does. Before I start, I want to give a quick shout out to a couple of my throwaway beers that I had on the other hand here. This Master Shake from Pontoon. I did not expect anything of this.
Mr. Shake. Master
Mr.
Shake would be a
Sorry.
lawsuit.
Right, Mr. I just got to give a quick shout out to these guys. That was delicious, and also quickly to this surprise, which I expected. Again, I expected nothing of any of these. This random red rice Japanese beer, which I was like,
Kitachino Nest.
yes.
Is it Kita or Hita? Is it a K or an H there?
It's Hitachino. I expected nothing of this because it's Japanese beer, and I expected it just to taste like Sapporo or something else. Holy shit!
It's a white ale.
It is amazing. It is absolutely.
I love that label. It's a cute as fuck little label.
Yeah, no, I mean, but like it's Japanese beer, so it's like
Belgian style, complex flavor, coriander, orange peel, nutmeg. This sounds wonderful,
right? I was not expecting anything from that, and it blew me away. So now back to my featured beer. However, this thing from Evil Twin. First of all, Jesus Christ, the head on this obviously like exploded on me. Yes, just like many big black things.
Good God.
I'm just gonna give it to Lucas. I'm just gonna like, you know what, Lucas, I'm gonna drive the bus there.
Gradually driving the bus down the hill of borderline racism in humor.
All right, so this is a funny story. So I was building my coat of arms the other many months ago, years ago, probably. And so like your coat of arms is supposed to represent like your personal experiences and your achievements. And I was getting a tickle.
Pause. Why?
Just for shits and giggles. Just for shits and giggles.
This was just an exercise.
Just an exercise. I was getting shits and giggles at the
isn't there
bar.
like already a coat of
and
arms from McDaniels of days of yore?
No. Like it's your own personal coat of arms. Like it's supposed to be your own personal coat of arms.
It's your David McDaniel.
My David McDaniel coat of arms. And I was getting this tickle, and this large black man was wondering why I was laughing my ass off.
Where were you?
At ML.
Okay.
And then it got even more awkward because he came over and he was asking like, why are you laughing your ass off? I'm like, so here's the deal. The symbol for a law degree is the moorcock, which for those of you who don't know what the moorcock is, it's a black rooster. So it's a big black cock.
Okay. What did he say?
He's like, he was just like, white people. I don't know. Like, it's just like, you're an asshole. Like he was like, an asshole. I'm like, yes, I've been drinking. I'm sorry. I was trying not to say big black cock, but yes, apparently, if I'm building my own personal coat of arms, it involves a big black cock.
That's hilarious.
So it's chocolate. I mean, there's definite caramel notes in this. This is like, on the finish, man. Also, I want to point out this has so much sugar in it. It's sticking to the like where it over foamed.
Yeah,
it's sticking to the side of the stein.
I mean, it really like it looks delicious, and that's out of New York. So
yeah, there
could be availability for that in a lot of places. I'm gonna have to go seek that out.
I mean, this has got like a metric shit ton of sugar in it.
You know me and my fat kid beers. Is that one that I would love?
No, yeah, this is definitely one that you would chug down like it was its job.
It's starting to level out a little bit, and it's starting to look like a beer again.
Literally, like look at how even the foam is working. Like it's got that much like sugar and chocolate in it.
It cooled down to a lighter color. When you first poured it, it looked like a giant chocolate milkshake was just exploding.
It is a giant chocolate milkshake. It's a giant chocolate caramel milkshake, is what it is. I'm actually gonna end up chugging this down because it tastes like just like hot chocolate. It tastes like room temperature hot chocolate is what it tastes like. I'm
not sure what the room temperature part of that description, but
even if you look down, like
what it looks like it looks like a float. It looks like a float when the ice cream is completely dissolved and left the foam.
It's very much like this is so ridiculous. Man, sugary beers aren't normally my thing. I'm gonna enjoy this for what it is. Sugary
got
beers
to
aren't
you,
normally my
didn't we?
thing. I normally like something bitter.
We got to you. The fat kid beer movement has finally
This is
done
definitely
you in.
fat kid beer. This is 100% fat kid beer. In fact, I will be honest. This is the fattest fat kid beer that I have ever fucking tasted.
I want to go back real quick. A little call out that Olivia made I had missed was Polar was making a ginger lime mule seltzer for a while. It was a banging whiskey mixer, and that is something I forgot to point out about my my Bell's session ale ginger lime is it dances right up to a mule, but it still has more of a slammability and less of a bite. She's asking where in New York is the evil twin.
Lucas, that's your job right now.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
gonna look that up right now.
it's like the caramel. Like I gotta say, like the
Brooklyn.
like
Brooklyn is the answer.
the caramel finish on this is so like because normally caramel is not something that you expect to like come in as a strong flavor.
Mm-hmm.
The caramel finish on this is so ridiculous. It's still stuck to my tongue.
Oh, actually, let's see.
caramel.
Ridgewood, Queens, Dumbo, Brooklyn, and apparently there's an evil twin coffee. These people, okay. Whenever I go to New York, this is on my list.
No, I mean like literally, and even as I'm pouring the beer, like the foam is moving on top of the beer still. Like it's Jesus, it's that intense. Like but I mean, I'm gonna chug this honestly because it tastes
Sounds
just like
incredible.
sugar. It tastes just like sugar.
I'm gonna look for it. Maybe I'll contact them and ask them where their beer might be distributed near me, and they'll do better than the frog people.
No, I mean there is no
hopping frog
flavor. There is no malt flavor. There is just chocolate and caramel in that. That's it.
Nice.
That's all there is to that whatsoever. If you serve this well chilled, I don't know what to say. Like I feel like this is like GHB. I don't know like what to say. Like what is the alcohol percentage on this? Holy shit.
Hold on, wait. 16?
12.
Oh, okay.
That is a date rape drug. That is a date.
Oh, it's a good thing we don't have monetization on YouTube because so far tonight we've gone through the big black dicks and the date rape subjects all in one setting.
No, I mean I'm serious. Like if you just gave this to like someone unsuspecting,
no, you're right. You're right. I can see what you're saying.
Alcohol.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, this is like because again there is no alcohol flavor for 12%. There is no alcohol flavor. There is no nothing. It is just there might be a slight coffee.
Oh, there's going to be some coffee. Apparently, that's like a mainstay for them.
No, like okay. So here's how it evolves. It evolves into sweet chocolate, and then a sweet coffee, and then it finishes real strong on the caramel. This is, man.
It's a good. You're making a good pitch over here for the fans of the scrumdiddlyumptious dessert beers,
right? This is. I mean, so to clarify, I fucking hate dessert beers. I'm probably never going to pick this again because I have that masochist streak in me needs to be abused by malt and hops. When I'm drinking my beer, like
you say I'm the curmudgeon.
It's one of the reasons why I choose Fireball as my normal shooter, simply because I want to be reminded that I'm trash. But I mean, this is just so out of control, sweet and sugary and cake.
I am incredibly enthusiastic about it. That's a good opportunity to segue into the last stretch, and it's probably not as lengthy as our mid stretch because it's such a developing story, but
yeah,
we're gonna revisit everybody's favorite Florida man at this point.
Oh Jesus!
My biggest gripe right now with Trump, the raid, etc., is this fucking garbage with this fucking party. And it's there were some years.
Hold on. Before we start, I want to point out I called it last episode.
Right. Yeah.
I called it last episode, and I was right, which is treason, violation of the Espionage Act.
Yeah, we're
Treason.
definitely looking into the treason bubble.
I win. I don't know what I want.
I've been calling out Republicans, and for a minute there, it wasn't fair to say the Republicans when talking about Trump, but it was only for like the first 6 months. These fucking clowns, like every fucking thing, they're all for it till it's inconvenient. They're all for local government. Oh shit, local government's making liberal laws we don't like. Okay, never mind. We're going to beat up on them. Back the blue is the latest hypocrisy. Back the blue unconditionally. All law enforcement are heroes except fuck the FBI. They're not heroes and they should be disbanded and attacked and shit. And the same with any police action they didn't like in January 6th. Like, back the blue, except try to kill this guy, even if he is a cop. It's just astonishing. I just don't know.
It's very obvious because it's like with the modern conservative movement, it's very obvious what they're after every single time, which is, first of all, validation of feelings. And when the shitty version of cops validate their feelings by killing black people, beating black people, arresting black, they support that. When law enforcement does the opposite, right, and says no, then it's a problem, right? Because now it's not a validation of their feelings anymore. It's they're doing what they're actually supposed to be doing. So the FBI, especially for them, the FBI, I would say, the ATF being another example, which lots of conservatives get super upset about Ruby Ridge and Waco, and even when they happened, I was looking around being like, wait a second. So you had a bunch of illegal guns in your compound. All you do was come out and let them take the illegal guns. That's how you had to do. And you didn't do that, and then a shit ton of people died because you didn't do that. And we're going to blame that on law enforcement because they actively tried for fucking days to make sure that didn't happen. And then you made it happen.
Yep.
And then we're going to blame law enforcement.
And of course, at the same time, these fucking clowns will tell you, well, if you run from the police, you're going to get shot.
Right? It's the exact same thing. Ruby Ridge. Hey, we saw you selling and buying sawed-off shotguns, which are illegal. We tried to come to your house and arrest you for doing something that's illegal. And then your family died. We didn't want them to die. You could have just come out and surrendered yourself and been like, yeah, my bad. I shouldn't have done that. That was illegal. But no, if you're white and it has to do with guns or killing black people or killing gay people or killing people who you think aren't Christians, which, by the way, also includes fucking me.
Right? I would like to throw another one of their old classics into the mix and point out they always want to say, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, just take the ticket or take being arrested. Go work it out in court. The injustice that you perceive, you can handle that in court. You shouldn't be running from or resisting the cops. Yet, again, Ruby Ridge, it's a cause. It's wrong for these laws to be, and it's our right to have these guns. And so we're not going to follow our own advice. It's astonishing how much the hypocrisy has been laid bare just in the past 15 years and then the past 6. But just the past 6 days have been an extreme exercise in all the hypocrisy ever. And then you have the excuse making. I love the laundry list. Well, they were planting evidence. Okay, no. We want everybody to see the evidence now. It's real, and we want people to see it. They were ransacking. We want the security footage to be seen. Maybe not. Maybe we're not going to show the security footage because it shows them patiently and slowly going through our shit, so we can't say that. I was framed.
I love the post where the guy's like, well, I wonder how many of those FBI agents were sniffing Melania's panties. I'm like, I can pretty much guarantee you no one wants to sniff where the mushroom has been. No one. Literally, she could not, like, the only person she could sell those to on, like, eBay are other Trumpers. Because no one else is going to want to touch whatever that is touched.
That fits, though, in their construct of her being like the most beautiful woman in the world or whatever bullshit. She's fine, whatever. She's not unattractive. She's a lot more attractive, 10, 20 years ago, but that's life.
Damn.
But these imbeciles, they don't know what hottest woman in the world even is. They just know that. Well, their aspirations
getting off the topic. I mean, like, the thing is,
like, aspirations to be rich and order a bride from Russia are satisfied by living vicariously through Trump.
To tie it into something I was saying before, which is it's that instinct to latch on to the thing that you think is going to secure your survival, right? For so many of these conservatives who come from poor rural areas. Like, we talk about the bootstraps scenario, right? A bunch.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Well, because, maybe the rich guy will reach down and touch me. Because at that point, and we wonder about why there's this correlation between Trump and Jesus, right? Maybe the rich man will reach down and touch me, and I will be elevated up into the ranks.
Right. Just by being an obedient servant of greed, enabling these fucking pieces of shit all this time. I'm going to one day be blessed with fortune. Like, they're going to be just going by like, it's great to be rich. It's great to be rich. Oh. Bing. Now you are. Fuck off.
I mean, but that's what they think that again, with so many of, I would argue, so many of the charismatic / evangelical churches, it's very much the same thing of, if I obey those in power, if I am obedient to power and all their abuses, then one day they will reach down and touch me, and I will no longer be suffering from the poverty that I'm in.
Or at least they'll protect me.
Or something along those lines. I mean, that's what it's become. And again, I would point out that, what you view as a clash between generations is a clash between generations only because of the inequality of resources.
It may very well be. So today they did the hearing to unseal the what was the warrant.
The affidavit
for the warrant, right?
So the testimony that was given to the FBI that triggered them to say we have enough evidence to execute a warrant in this matter.
And all of the pundits in the media basically presented it as a black and white either or equation. But now we're seeing that the judge has said, you know what, maybe a little column A, a little column B. Maybe we can.
I was not expecting that. I was not expecting the judge to be as forgiving as he was.
Very do both, which I always like. No, but I like a good do both.
I feel like what tipped the scales for him was the media coming in and saying, we want to see the affidavit. And so going back to the Pentagon Papers and some of these other instances, the expose on the Vietnam War and all those things, I feel like the court kind of looked at it and said, this is of historical significance, and therefore we do need to have a heightened level of transparency than we would normally have.
I think that's not unfair.
It is and it isn't, because here's the thing. is that we're not going to get anything of value from the affidavit, because what they're going to do is they're going to sit there with the biggest fucking black Sharpie you've ever seen in your entire life. This one's empty. But it's going to be like a giant black Sharpie, and they're going to cross everything out, and the court is going to rubber stamp it. Honestly, this is what's going to happen, because the government has a good case about, hey, we need to protect our sources in this matter because they're going to be called forward as witnesses, and we need them not to be intimidated.
Right.
And given Trump's previous behavior, right?
Yeah.
The court is not going to be as lenient about, hey, we're going to unseal this and do everything. They're going to allow the government a wide berth on redacting this document about what they thought they were looking for.
Yeah. Livy's got apparently it's come out that both earlier in the year, Team Trump's lawyers signed an affidavit stating that there were no remaining classified material, and prior to the search warrant, there was a subpoena for and review of like 60 days of Mar-a-Lago security footage. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a security personnel from that resort that's one of these whistleblowing witnesses.
Well, no, they're pretty sure it's a family member. Scuttlebutt is it's probably Jared. And there's a logic to this, which is, Scuttlebutt is it's probably Jared, and here's why. So Trump, in his intervening, like the connecting element is the Live golf tour.
It's Eric, Brian.
So
I'm sorry, but Trump's sons are never anything in my mind but their Saturday Night Live version.
Right.
So every reference is hilarious.
The connecting ligament is the Live golf tournament or golf tour, which, if you're not familiar, so traditionally in the United States we have the PGA, the Pro Golf Association. In the past year, we've had the evolution of this Live, which is I don't know what it stands for, LIV golf tour, which operates under slightly different rules. The PGA has made a point of any pro golfer who signs on to this tour is banned from the PGA, which triggered a court case not too long ago, on which the pro golfers who signed on to the LIV tournament were not they were not allowed to rejoin the PGA. It might be, you know what, Brian, I don't think it's about 24. I'm not sure. I think it's supposed to stand for something. I'm not sure. But the main thing is that this LIV tournament is almost entirely funded by the Saudi government, to the tune of $2 billion. $2 billion. Now, who is a major promoter? Who are the major promoters of this new golf tour? That would be the Trumps. The Trumps have made a very big deal about not only being supporters of this, but also being paid by the promoters of this golf tour, which, first of all, who the fuck asked for this? I'm going to be honest. Like, where in the market was there like, you know what? We need a competing golf tour.
You know what there isn't enough of? Golf.
You might mean like the XFL. Okay, maybe, because that's a big market. If you were to somehow make a better version of baseball, okay, maybe. Hockey, probably not. Soccer, no. But baseball and football in America, sure. Golf, not really up there. Like, so why all of a sudden are the Saudis?
It's a meme. It's nobody, literally no one. And by the way, it's a little bit of both. I don't know if it's pronounced, but it looks like it might have a pronunciation key here in Wikipedia. But it is based on the Roman numeral 54, the score if every hole on a par 72 course were birdied, and the number of holes to be played at live events, live, LIV, it's whatever it is. But it's like it's a cute little double reference or whatever.
So the point is that the Saudis show up with $2 billion to fund this. And here were the Trumps right at the beginning, right? And of course, what is Trump's big side business? Golf courses, where he's now hosting these events,
and
right?
burying ex-wives.
And burying ex-wives to void them of property taxes and other such things. So there's a connection, I think, being drawn by a lot of people of, okay, so you have nuclear documents. I have a Arab nation who has a sincere desire to acquire nuclear weapons. And then I have a $2 billion investment in this bullshit golf series, which is so poorly thought out that many of so many golfers, when they finally heard about it, like Tiger Woods, they tried to offer Tiger Woods $800 million to sign on to this thing, and Tiger Woods was like, "No, this is a bad idea. It's a terrible idea.
Motherfuckers,
I
I got
got
enough of
two
my own
broken
drama."
legs, and I can barely play fucking golf anymore. And I'll be damned, I ain't touching this thing with a 12-foot pole that's attached to someone else's dick."
It is always interesting how some fishy shit can be whittled down to some crooked business shit. This is every single time a new corner is turned with Trump world, it's a reminder that he's just a mobster. Their empire is just partially legalized organized crime. I say partially because the majority of it is illegal. It's just screened so conveniently by American capitalism. And then the notion that business people just are not political leaders. 9 times out of 10, business leaders make horrific political leaders because they think everything works like a business. They approach everything like a business, but all in the wrong ways. It's amazing because a lot of times I look at government action and I point out, like, there's the business of a city to run going on here. And there are business approaches and answers that can work. But when your leadership thinks like a business, and particularly a crooked business, it's an exceptional recipe for corruption.
I want to point out something else that's kind of come out about what might have happened, which might be why Wiseman flipped. So for those of you who don't know, Trump's primary accountant from the Trump organization, Wiseman, flipped today. He's going to plead guilty, and he will appear as a government witness. Some people have asked, well, why might this be significant? So this is conjecture, and I normally don't like to do this sort of like what if thing, but again, it's one of those things of, if I know I have a little bit of A and I know I have a little bit of B, is it so far of a stretch to think that there might be C? So apparently Trump, from inside sources, the P tape is real. Trump knows it's real, and he's been pissed about it.
Pissed.
I see what I did there.
Good job, you punny guy.
Apparently, in true mob fashion, he may or may not have been collecting his own compromat, which is compromising material, on other people. Which, if you have that sort of thing, you probably want to store it in the safest place that you can think of. Like next to the nuclear launch materials that were seized by the FBI, which they would have just picked up along with all the other boxes of stuff that shouldn't have been there.
That's an interesting line of thinking.
Because we know Cohen, when he was working as Trump's attorney, was there to settle issues and distribute. Well, I know something you wouldn't like known. Write a check or do what I say, like with Stormy Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
We know he was already doing this. We know his previous attorney before Cohen was a mob lawyer with other mob ties. We know his head of security was a former mob enforcer. Is it so outside the realm to think that maybe Trump built his own files of compromising material on other individuals? And I want to hit the history button, Lucas.
Jesus.
Hit the history button, Lucas.
This is your home stretch, buddy.
This is my home stretch. So in the 1920s, Indiana politics was dominated by the head of the Ku Klux Klan in Indiana. And part of why it was dominated by the head of the Ku Klux Klan in Indiana was because he had signed pledges from the majority of the Indiana legislature. He also had compromising material on a lot of them. Now, one day, the head of the Indiana Ku Klux Klan, this is before it was properly white trash, because this is how powerful he was in 1920s Indiana, in his private train car, because he had a private train car that rode the rails of Indiana, sees a pretty girl and decides that, yep, got to bone that. Only problem is she didn't want to, and that didn't end up well for her. So likely, and again, tying this back to something I mentioned earlier, in an effort to ensure that she didn't get pregnant, overdosed on aborifacients, which contained at that time what she took contained primarily mercury, which therefore she was dying. She gave a deathbed confession, and lo and behold, this head of the Indiana Ku Klux Klan gets arrested by a sheriff who actually has a pair of balls. He busily sends out a message to the rest of the Indiana legislature and says, you either get me out of here, or all those pledges and all those things that I've kept on you, I'm going to release. Well, lo and behold, by that point, the story had gone too far. They couldn't touch him. And so he promptly called as many press individuals as he could, many reporters as he could, to his jail cell, handed one of them the key, said, go to my garage. Indiana politics was a bit more interesting the next election. I feel like Trump might have done that. I feel like Trump might have been building his own layers of compromise on, because again, even Rudy Giuliani said, he won't hurt me. I have insurance, right?
Mm-hmm. What I mean, just since you went down this road, give me 3 people you think he would be working on compromising through such a collection.
McConnell's wife, Cho.
Do what?
McConnell's wife, Cho.
Oh, okay.
That'd be number one if I had to pick something. So McConnell gets implicated by association with an individual who has extreme ties to the Chinese government, and obviously Kentucky has benefited not unduly from connections of that nature with the Chinese government. Number 2,
you're off to a great start, because I hadn't even considered. I mean, I was going way more petty, like
Matt Gaetz. Well, I mean, I would say Matt Gaetz would probably be the second one because he's easy. Also, the Gaetz family controls a significant portion of Florida politics. His daddy is a big Florida politician. It wouldn't be hard to dig up a lot of dirt on Matt Gaetz. I'm sure there's tons. Number 3, I'd go with, not McCarthy. Go Mayor probably. Or Lindsey Graham. Go Mayor or Lindsey Graham. I think Lindsey Graham, Lindsey Graham is kind of obvious. I feel like that's not a hard sell. But I
I
feel
don't
like
know if
Gomer.
Lindsey Graham just isn't automatically the gimp. I mean, I don't think you need dirt on him.
Here's the thing. I have no doubt in my mind that there are multiple pictures of Lindsey Graham with 17-year-old boys. I have no doubt in my mind. There is nothing. There is nothing that all that is like, yeah, that exists. Lindsey Graham with a 17-year-old boy, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. All right, that's going to be the visual that we're going to call it on. We're going to let that linger in people's heads as they lay down to rest tonight.
I'm so sorry, but not really. But kind of, but not really.
As always, thanks for joining us.
How
Pass
you
it around,
doing, Jeremy?
Smear a little of us on your friends. Tell people about it.
Would you like some coconut oil, Jeremy?
Share a post once in a while. Invite somebody to like
I
our
could rub
page.
that in real nice, Jeremy.
Stop by our YouTube channel. Be sure that you're subscribed and liking us there.
Feel real good.
And one last question with Olivia. Not Hunter. He took that bizarre obsession all the way to Ukraine and got impeached over it. Yeah, but I think he thinks he has enough stuff on him. And Lindsay,
here's the thing: if they had anything on any Democrat, it would have already been released. He wouldn't hold that in reserve. He'd just throw that to the wind.
That's probably a good point. Anyway, folks, this is the part where we tell you goodbye till next week. So, good night.
Good evening.
Good luck.
Good luck.